Man gives homeless girl a coat, discovers she's his missing sister. It was one of those freezing cold evenings where no matter how many layers you wear, the wind seems to slice right through you. My shift at the diner had just ended, and all I could think about was a hot shower and the warmth of my bed. The streets were almost deserted. Most people had the good sense to stay indoors. As I turned onto Fifth Avenue, I saw her. She was huddled against the brick wall of a building, knees pulled tightly to her chest, trying to shield herself from the bitter cold. Her coat was thin and worn, barely more than a patchwork of fabric. Her face was buried in her arms, and her tangled hair spilled over her shoulders. I thought about walking past. I'd seen homeless people before and had trained myself to look away. But something about her made me stop. Maybe it was how fragile she seemed against the harsh wind, or perhaps it was the faint sound of her sobbing as I approached. I hesitated, then crouched down. "Hey," I said softly. "Are you okay?" She didn't look up, but she shook her head. "Do you have somewhere to go?" I asked. She hugged her knees tighter instead of answering. My heart sank. Without thinking, I took off my heavy parka, the one that had carried me through so many brutal winters, and draped it over her shoulders. She flinched at first, but then looked up at me, her eyes red and filled with tears. "Take it," I said gently. "You need it more than I do." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to protest, but she stayed silent. That's when I noticed how young she looked, barely 18 or 19. Her pale face and raw, wind-burned cheeks tugged at something deep inside me. There was something oddly familiar about her, though I couldn't place it. "What's your name?" I asked. She hesitated before whispering. "Anna." "Anna," I repeated, kneeling so I could meet her gaze. "Do you have family? Someone who can help you?" Her eyes brimmed with tears again as she shook her head. "I don't know where they are." "Okay," I said gently. "Let's get you somewhere warm, and we'll figure things out from there." After a moment's pause, she nodded. I helped her to her feet, and we walked to the diner where I worked. It wasn't much, but I knew the owner wouldn't mind if I brought her inside to warm up. I made her a cup of hot cocoa and a plate of scrambled eggs, and she devoured them like she hadn't eaten in days. As I watched her eat, I couldn't shake the feeling that I knew her from somewhere. Her features, her eyes, the curve of her jaw, nagged at me. Then, like a bolt of lightning, it hit me. "Anna," I said slowly, my voice trembling. "What's your last name?" She looked up at me, confused.
"Why?"
"Please," I urged, leaning forward. "Just tell me." She hesitated, then murmured, "Louis." The air left my lungs, and my hands began to shake. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "Anna Lewis," I whispered. She nodded, her brow furrowed. "How do you know that?" Tears blurred my vision as I reached into my wallet and pulled out an old, faded photograph. It was a picture of me with my little sister Anna, taken years ago before she disappeared. She was just 10 years old in the photo, smiling brightly with her arm around me. I slid the picture across the table. Her eyes widened as she stared at it. That's me," she said, her voice barely audible. "Anna," I said, my voice breaking. "It's me. It's Jack. I'm your brother." Her hand flew to her mouth, and tears streamed down her face. "Jack," she choked out. I nodded, unable to say another word. In an instant, she was out of her chair and in my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her tightly, tears of my own streaming down my face. After all these years, I'd finally found her. When she calmed down, she told me her story. After her parents died in a car accident, she'd been placed in foster care. The system had failed her, shuffling her from home to home until she ran away at 16. She'd been living on the streets ever since, just trying to survive. "I thought I'd never see you again," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been looking for you," I said. "Ever since you disappeared, I've been searching." I never gave up. That night, I brought Anna home. She stayed in my guest room, and I made sure she had everything she needed. Over the following weeks, I helped her get back on her feet. We got her new clothes, proper identification, and started arranging therapy to help her heal from everything she'd been through. Most importantly, we reconnected. We spent hours talking, reminiscing about our childhood, and catching up on all the years we'd missed. It wasn't easy. There were wounds to heal for both of us. But together, as siblings should, we faced it. Finding Anna was the most unexpected and miraculous thing to happen to me. It reminded me that no matter how dark things get, there's always hope for light to break through. Watching her smile and laugh again, I knew one thing for certain: I would never let her go again.